Hey, and welcome to the Skeptic Hangout, the place where we sit back, relax, and chit chat about intriguing and sometimes controversial topics through the lens of skepticism. I am Laura, and I am joined by Richard, Josh, and our good friend and guest host, Puck. Today, we will be discussing modesty. So grab your English tea, or if you don't like dressing things up, your straight black coffee, and join us as we get to take it all off and lay it all out on the table. No, Josh, I don't mean our clothes. I mean the proverbial gloves. This is Skeptic Hangout Modesty. Don't take it off. Don't take it off.
That's no woman has ever said that to me.
But has any woman ever said, take it off?
All the time. Like all the time
Okay.
when I'm walking down the street, but I dress like a harlot. So it's on me. That's
Those
not
duty
on
shorts really do it for you, huh?
that's not on anybody, actually. That's all a joke because it doesn't matter how you dress, you're not telling people to treat you like a piece of meat. And it
Right.
doesn't happen to me because I'm an average looking guy, but it does happen a lot with women. And I think Puck even had an example he wanted to bring towards this topic.
Yeah, there is, and this is the what got me thinking about this whole thing. And usually, when I start going down a rabbit hole, I talk to Laura about it, and then Laura
Mhm.
says, "Wait a second, let's save this conversation for when we can get the whole group together." So here's the background on this. There is a atheist content creator who posted it wasn't even really that risque of a photo, just showing a little bit more than usual, and it was lambasted by a number of people who were saying things like you have the intelligence, you have good points, you shouldn't have to show off skin to get attention, you shouldn't be doing this, and you shouldn't have to do this. And I got to thinking, is there some weird social dichotomy between being intelligent and being attractive?
No.
Okay,
Instant head shaking.
first
So
of
that's good. That's
all,
good.
first of all, no. Second of all, that's a whole other show in and of itself, right? It really is. When you talk about the tie between intelligence and beauty and whether or not they're mutually exclusive, that is like a whole conversation in and of itself. But when you talk about what were the comments warranted? Was she being tasteful or not? Like, was it appropriate for her? First of all, I saw the picture and it was very cute and sexy. And I would say it showed a little bit, but I don't think it was inappropriate. My whole thing is, what's wrong with that? So I would push back with not, you know, like what's the link between intelligence and beauty, or is it okay for her to post this picture? My whole thing is, why the fuck not? Why is it that we live in a society where someone is measured by how well they keep themselves under this really tight control of, I'm not a sexual being, I'd never go out and have any fun, I don't curse because I want to have a following, right? We should not be afraid to lose our following or be thought of as less intelligent because we also find ourselves sexy and want to show a little skin. So I thought that the picture was incredibly cute, and I think it's okay. I don't have
I
any problem with it.
I think it's a problem that comes up in atheist circles, especially from people that have actually come out of being religious and they still have some of those
Mm-hmm.
religious hangups where they equate modesty with intelligence or self respect. Where I actually follow, there's some porn stars that I follow on Instagram, and
Yeah.
some they don't dress modestly. Spoiler alert, or surprise, surprise on that. And even being a porn star who definitely just bears all for everybody doesn't exclude
Mm-hmm.
you from being an intelligent person. I've seen loads of intelligent posts from porn stars because of that. That's just one facet of their life is doing porn and like exposing themselves. And that also doesn't make them an object. That's another thing that people think that if you put it out there, that it's yours to see at all time. When they're on camera and they're exposing willingly, that's them exposing. You go ahead and enjoy that. It still doesn't make them an object. It still doesn't mean like you see them out in public, you get yell at them, "Hey, show me your titties," because you saw it online or something. Oh,
I agree.
Richard. Oh,
No, I agree. I think this has thrown me off a little bit at the start of this because as soon as I heard the title Modesty, I immediately I started thinking about the niqab in Islam. And
Oh,
that's where my brain went straight away, and I thought that's where we would go. But as always, we've kind of gone a completely different
surprise!
route
I'm
We're talking
always
about
thinking about porn
booty
stars.
shorts and boobies.
to where I was expecting. So yeah, it's a very good point. I think I don't think it's weird that we kind of and I slightly push back on books with intelligence and beauty, because I think there are lots of beautiful people who are fully clothed and can be beautiful when fully clothed. I think we should be very careful to specify that we're talking about the kind of modesty here rather than beauty in and of itself.
Right.
And I think uh, there seems to be this kind of link between intelligence, you are being an intelligent person, and modesty. If you're intelligent, why would you take your clothes off? There's that kind of I don't know, that's
It's like an
in
inverse
Britain anyway.
proportion
Yeah,
between intelligence and sexuality. The more intelligent
yeah.
you are, the less sexuality you have,
I don't know. I
right?
find sexy women smart, or smart women sexy. You got it
Yeah.
backwards.
Yeah. I
So
mean,
I
I'm
don't really see that.
yeah, I'm right there with you. What do they call it? Like sapiosexual? Like, yeah, I think
Yeah,
it's a silly term, but
weirdly, I find very smartly, conservatively dressed women very sexy as well. I don't know whether that's weird or not. I don't know whether it's normal, but
no, each to his
I find them
own.
very attractive. To me, that's more attractive than somebody uh, waggling the titties about. Not that I have any problem at all with anybody waggling the titties about in public or in private, if they so choose to do that. But yeah, I don't know. It's weird how we have this kind of this thing between intelligence and modesty. And I don't understand it. I don't understand why we have that.
Well, just modesty in general, just cultural modesty seems dumb to me. I find the wardrobe choices done for society idiotic and make no sense at all. I'm actually, and people have called me a pervert for this, but I'm absolutely for women being able to take off their shirts and bra, and like same way guys are able to take off their
Yeah.
shirts and if they choose to wear them bras. It's not really a problem, except for we made it a societal norm where it's a horrible thing for a woman to have their tits loose. It comes with, it makes them seem immoral and stuff like that, when honestly there's no reason why, other than like guys are going to find that attractive, and guys need to learn to get control when women aren't dressing modestly, instead of telling women to do something to cover up their bodies all the time. It's up to other people to get control of their own situation before they worry about anybody else's sense of modesty.
God, now you're talking about like desensitization versus hypersexualization, right? Like you can normalize something to where look at doctors. They have to look at like penises and vulvas all day long, depending on the doctor. I will throw that out there.
Penis and
But
vulva
you know,
doctor.
right? But you don't see them flipping out and going crazy over all these penises and vulvas and boobs and assholes that
Oh,
they're looking at, right? Like they're
my
perfectly fine
my
keeping
doctor
it.
sounds like Married with Children when Kelly comes in when I take off my pants. She's just like,
I doubt that. So he like totally derailed me.
My
You know what
doctor's
derailing is?
Words,
my
words,
my
thoughts.
doctor's totally like Honey I Shrunk the Kids when my pants come off because they get the magnifying glass out and they're like,
oh, poor
It's
Richard.
funny that you use the word derail for that, because I'm not beyond thinking that this is actually a deliberate tactic. Instead of addressing someone on the points that they're bringing up, you get to derail the entire thing by saying, why are we listening to her when she's showing this much cleavage? Obviously, she's just trying to get your attention and trying to win your favor that way, but because she knows that she has no legitimate points to argue it. So it becomes a point of immediate dismiss. It shouldn't be, but it becomes a point, and some people actually listen to that. It's like, okay, yeah, why should we listen to this vicious trollop when if they're not going to present
Vicious
themselves?
trollop.
I don't know what the words for this.
It's just like when people do tone policing, where you're making great points, but you're dropping a lot of fucks and shit in there, and they'll be like, "I can't listen to this. This guy's not intelligent because he's saying bad words." It's the same thing if they're dressing immodestly. I can't. They don't have any good points because they look too sexy for me, or they're just showing too much. They don't even have to look sexy. They just have to be showing too much skin for the person to be like able to take them seriously because they have some hang up on that.
Yeah. Okay. So that actually does go back to my point about the desensitization and hypersexualization. When it becomes normalized to show a certain amount of skin, nobody gives a fuck. Nobody cares that I'm on this podcast right now in a tank top, right? I'm showing everything but my boobs right now, and nobody gives a damn, right? Because we're used to that level of modesty in our culture, right? And I'd say there's a subset within our culture that's not, but fuck them anyway. Like, I don't care. But when you make something hypersexual, like, we can't even think about that, can't even talk about that, don't show your belly buttons. There's poetry about people's wrists and ankles, right? Because it was really risque to show wrists and ankles at one point in history, right? And they were hypersexualized, and so it was really sexy for a woman to just kind of pull her, because that was how they were taught to view sexuality. And so if we were to make laws like, dude, women breastfeed in public, go for it. Feed your freaking baby before worrying about what that dick across the table like thinks about it, right? Or, hey, you want to go at the beach and take your top off, go for it. If that were the cultural norm, the men in the culture overall would be desensitized to it. Sure, they would still be beautiful. Sure, we could still sexualize them. Breasts are awesome. I love them, but
dicks.
No, they would, right? But there would be a cultural norm around how to treat those dicks when they act like dicks, right? And then it wouldn't be hypersexualized. It would be contextually sexualized. When I'm in the bedroom, my boobs are sexualized. When I'm feeding my baby, they're not, right? So I think, to your point, I think that's all the more reason I sort of like, in a way, I sort of fear modesty, because it changes our programming and how we view our own bodies and how we treat each other in a way that I think sometimes is counterproductive. Often is counterproductive.
It definitely seems to be a level of control, especially when it's pointed in at women, because I don't think guys get it as much of an issue with that. Like, I see guys running in just like shorts and running shoes, and that's it. Nobody like bats an eye at it. But if a woman were doing the same thing, it'd be scandalous. It would be a big issue in the city. So like, it's definitely a level of control that's put over women or people just that aren't cis men, that that it's kind of I'm trying to put it into words. It's definitely too far, and it's coming out of, I think, religious values that I'm hoping we eventually get rid of. I could see maybe 50 years it wouldn't be considered or it wouldn't be considered a bad thing for a woman to run out with a no top on or something like that. It'd be commonplace, because I see us drifting further and further away from religious purity, where I see modesty culture mainly coming from. But right now we're still trying to escape it.
Well, and then don't go ahead.
On. No, you
I was
go.
gonna say, don't give me and you weren't doing it, but like, just people out there, don't give me the bullshit that like, well, women's bodies are somehow more sexual and it turns more guys on, da 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 da. Yes, guys are more aggressive and they're able to exercise more control physically over a woman in general, but we sexualize males all the freaking time. If there's a guy running down the street in his t-shirt and he's got a nice set of like abs and some shoulders, it turns us on. We like it. We sexualize you guys. And I can just as easily sexualize a woman who's covered in a cute little sundress. Let's even call it a modest dress. Like, if depending on how she's wearing it, like Richard said, sometimes modest clothing can be very sexy. Like, I like me a pair of jeans and boots on a woman and like a cute sweater. Dang, right? So we can sexualize people no matter what. Like, you can find a way to sexualize in the cob if you want to. So I just wanted to call bullshit on that counterpoint that I know is floating out there somewhere, that, well, men can uncover because they're not as sexualized that way, and women can't uncover because like they're sexualized and their breasts are for in the bedroom, yada yada yada, bullshit. Well, a dude's nipples are for in the bedroom too, by the way. Like, I just want to throw that out there to the audience. So there you have it. There's my rant.
I think it's very interesting how we've been talking about this, and we've been talking about, sexy guys and sexy gals and sexy in betweens, and other. I think it's very interesting to note that we've not once have we talked about the grossly overweight person undressing in public and how people react to that. It's all being sexualized, all about sex, and I think no matter what your body shape is, everybody has a right to wear dress how they like in public. And I've seen fat people without the tops on, and people of the same sex saying, "Ooh, they shouldn't be doing that. They shouldn't have those. They shouldn't be undressing when they look like that."
Ugh.
And it's not all about modesty and the fact that beautiful people shouldn't dress a certain way, but everybody, we should treat everybody the same. Doesn't matter whether you're beautiful or not, or have a societally attractive body shape or not. Yeah,
yeah,
and I think that's another thing that we kind of we need to be aware of when we're thinking about this, is that it's not just not only beautiful people undress, and even it's funny how beautiful people are quite happy for other beautiful people to wear very little clothing in a lot of cases, but they don't want people they don't consider beautiful to be dressing in the same way. And it's not all about kind of being conservatively dressed in intelligence and things. It can be inter-group as well as intra-group.
that's a good point. And not just beautiful according to their own standards versus not beautiful, big versus small or whatever, but also relationally. It is okay for me as an individual to sexualize women on the screen, or to watch porn, or to admire a woman in a cute bikini on the beach. But my daughter better be dressed from head to toe, like, like, don't show any flesh, right? And I'm not saying I want parents to sexualize their children, but I'm saying I think that parents should be careful to offer appropriate expressions, that if it's okay for somebody else to have an expression, why is it not okay for your own child to have that expression, and to decide for themselves how much or how little they show? And of course, depending on the age, if you want to control your 7-year-old, that's fine. But if they're like 18, 19 years old and you're telling them you can't wear that bikini, but I'm going to sit there and admire that woman, you're telling them that there's two different standards. And so I think that kind of goes across the board. Or men who tell their women they can only dress certain ways. Yeah, I say they're women like they fucking own them. Scratch that from
thinking
the
it's true.
I mean, thinking from their mindset when you say that, though, because any guy that tells a woman how they can dress, they're
That's
thinking of it
they
as
see it.
their women. They're not thinking of it as their girlfriend or the person that's in a relationship. They're thinking of that woman as an object. And that's definitely where they're weaponizing modesty culture, because they're like, that level of control that I'm saying was coming from the government now is coming from the person that you're supposedly are in a loving relationship with. That's when it's extremely fucked.
Yeah, it's the hypocrisy as well goes. I'm determined to get Islam in here somewhere. Got Muslim friends who have daughters, and they want their daughters and sometimes their wives to dress what they consider appropriately. And yet in Islam, a few years ago, and this is going back a few years for the statistics, because I recently looked up the statistics and now it's changed, and the kind of number one consumer is America and kind of more Western countries. But a few years ago, one of the largest consumers of porn was the Middle Eastern countries, the predominantly Muslim countries. And it's strange how they want their own family members to dress conservatively, but they're quite happy for other people's family members to bear all for their own titillation.
Yeah, because when you suppress a natural urge and a natural need and you turn it into something evil or bad, people are gonna fuck around in ways like that. Like, and I don't see any problem with porn. Like, I enjoy porn. People should be able to watch porn, right? But I do think there's a problem in saying that it's bad and then watching it yourself, like behind, or telling someone else they can't be a sexual being or they can't express themselves, but then you're like watching two people go at it, and like there's zero sense of modesty there. Um, that's all about like suppression, right? Like it's interesting that the way that people view sex is behind closed doors is so natural. Like they have the same urges as everybody else and they do the same things while not saying that they do as everyone else, but in public. And that's like a whole different form of modesty, right? It's like modesty of your character or whatever.
And
In
all, I
public
just want to throw out
expression.
there, by the way, that it's okay for, because there are people, we have a wide range of listeners from a wide range of backgrounds, and it's okay not to watch porn. I don't watch porn. It doesn't do
Totally.
anything for me. I like to be in, I'm in the moment when I'm in the moment with a person. I like that personal connection, and porn honestly does nothing for me. It never has done. It's not something that really turns me on. It's okay not to like it, as well as it is to like it.
I think you just shifted Josh's paradigm without a clutch there. So, have you guys ever heard the phrase porn shoulders?
No.
Oh, okay. So in the circles that I grew up in, there was such thing as porn shoulders. It's a term that, like I was in the Mormon church for a while. And if you want to talk about a religious group that really wants to talk about modesty, you have them. They don't even like, Laura, you pointed out you're wearing a tank top. Those are porn shoulders, because what you are doing is you're being overly distracting. And of course, it's never the men's fault for being
Which is why
distracted.
you guys can't get a single point out, right?
I can't. I'm completely befuddled. Like I am stymied. I have no idea what I'm saying. I'm completely lost.
I'm just thinking about our audio listeners now. We've got audio listeners, and now we've mentioned
audio listeners. I'm giving you shoulder
Laura's
right
state
now.
of dress several times this episode. So I'm waiting for the audio listeners to change to visual listeners really quick.
And it was a way of like immediately shutting it down. Like nothing else matters, because we have to deal with the shoulder issue right now. And it's a way of completely taking a huge subset of the population and reducing them to, we don't have to listen to you because you're not presenting yourself properly. So
yeah, I think the shoulders is the least of Mormonism's problems with women.
It is a problem, one of many. Yeah.
I agree with you, but when it's used in that sense of like, we just we don't need to listen to this person because of it. It's completely it is textbook ad hominem, but it's out there and it's used for that. And it's like, what do we do to begin fighting back against it? Normalization was one suggestion, where if there are just enough porn shoulders out there, we'll learn to ignore it. So but is that, like, do we want to get there? Like, is there a context for saying that there is a such thing as like a professional setting where we're still expected to dress in a certain way, or does appearance and dress have absolutely nothing to do with professionalism? We shouldn't even consider it.
Sorry.
Like if you went to a parent-teacher conference and you're and the teacher, the kids aren't there, but they, during the parent-teacher conference, they're there in a leather corset. Is that like, do we take minus points for that because they weren't professional in a professional setting? Or do we say,
no, the teacher being in a corset or the parent?
The teacher.
You're probably expected some kind of dress code in that environment. I think it's definitely modesty culture is going to change in a work environment. So that's not an angle I've thought about. It should probably. I do think there's a difference, but as long as it's across the board, that means that guys and women are held to the same standard, instead of just saying guys can wear whatever the fuck they want, but women got to cover up fucking everything. That's when it becomes a problem. But I do think that your employees, you're in their grounds, they get to set the kind of environment that they want to have on their grounds. Even a school could set those kinds of environment that they want on those grounds. I don't think it's wrong for for them to demand that the teachers dress a certain way within limits. They can't say all the teachers got to wear skirts every single day. That's when you're crossing a line. But if they're just saying you can't come to work in a corset, that might be within their lines of being able to talk about it. I hate to say anything like that because I know that as a high schooler I wanted this sexy teacher, but I don't think it's out of the realms of the school district to enforce a kind of dress code that's a little bit modest if that's what they so choose. I do think different work environments can have different levels of dress codes though. Like honestly, there's Hooters that has their kind of dress code where it's pretty damn sexy. I do think that if the guy chefs in the back wanted to wear the same thing, though, they should be able to wear the exact same thing. As long as it's across the board and it's under a company or a school district, I can't really say it'd be wrong for it to be enforced.
Before anybody uses a soundbite on this one, I was using a teacher in the context of a parent-teacher conference, not a teacher in a classroom with kids. Just so
I understood
because I know someone's going to be in the comments. Someone's going to clip that and say, "Hey, Puck is endorsing wearing corsets around kids." No, that is not what I'm saying. Just make sure that's
I
clear.
understood that, but school conferences are still done on school grounds, so like the dress code for the teachers might be in there. But if the mom wants to come in wearing a corset, they don't have anything on her because she's not an employee.
Yeah, see, I was actually gonna bring up the whole mom versus teacher thing, because I was watching a documentary on extreme bodies, and there was a woman like tattooed head to toe. She has implants, like what do you call them when they're like the metal in you? Like it's like piercings, but they're like embedded in your skin.
The
Like
subdermal ones,
yeah,
subdermal implants.
yeah, subdermal implants. Yeah. And like she dresses in a corset, very goth. I wish I could remember her name, but
Name
she's
doesn't matter.
yeah, but well, because she's well known, she's famous. It'd be cool if I had her name because it'd be like, look this woman up, right? Like, but she would go to her kids' school to pick them up, and there were issues that some of the parents had with her, and ultimately those parents lost the battle because it's like, well, she has a right to dress the way she wants to dress, and she needs access to her kids and to her kids' school. But if she were a teacher, she would have easily been fired. My thing is modesty with regards to children should really match what the cultural lesson is for children. So today's day and age where we're hypersexualizing people, telling them to cover up, there's all these rules. Like you're telling the kids like, no, don't swing too high on the swing because you're wearing a skirt and kids can see your underwear. Like we're doing that kind of stuff to children. Then to allow a teacher into a classroom with a corset would be very, very confusing and it could cause issues. But there are women, like indigenous women today around the world, who raise their children naked. Like the children run around naked and the women are topless and the children see all of their body, right? Like a little bit here and there might be covered, but nakedness is not an issue for those children, and it doesn't impede their children's ability to learn what they need to learn to exist within that community in terms of like teaching them things, right? And so it really, really comes down to like what we keep saying, like context, right? Inherently, there's nothing wrong with a woman wearing a corset in front of anybody, right? Like, I don't care really how a person dresses in front of another person or a child, as long as contextually it's normalized for that society and they're not making the child uncomfortable, putting them in a sexual situation, hypersexualizing something that the child doesn't have the ability to comprehend or process or say like, no, I don't want to be a part of this or whatever. You know, if nakedness were normal in this society, then adults could be around children naked and it wouldn't be a problem. It's just because we have these really hypersensitive modesty standards that makes Puck's example not appropriate or not okay. And only because what message are we giving to our children? We're confusing our children. We're making our children uncomfortable, whatever. There's a litany of reasons why, but they all come back to you set the standard and now the standard like rules the people instead of the people determining the standard, if that makes any sense.
I think it's different with public service of any kind because you have to be able to reach the most people when you're in school. So you got to go with, you got to be able to reach across the modesty spectrum, and you can't expect everybody to be comfortable with that level of modesty. I'd say even if it were allowed outside, in like regular, like the grocery store or whatever, for women to walk around topless, if there was if they wanted to do something anywhere close to sexualized in a school, that's a completely different scenario, because you're not going to have everybody on that far of the spectrum. You're going to have some people that are only comfortable with modesty, regardless of what the laws are. So you're going to want to be able to reach as many people as possible. So I understand in any kind of public servant type area, it's going to be depending on the kind of clientele that you're working for, which schools you're working with, families, you're going to probably want to present somewhat modestly. I'm not even talking like I'm not saying we have to go back to Puritan days and like they can't have like maybe a little bit of cleavage showing, because I've had some teachers that had like the tiniest bit about cleavage showing. I don't think that's a problem, but you just got to dress for where the culture's level of modesty is. And that's going to change a lot over the years. It's going to loosen up as things go along, but you can't jump ahead of that. And the dress code should reflect that as the years go by, but you can't just expect everybody to jump right in.
Yeah, how does that saying on TikTok go? It says, am I showing off my boobs, or do I have boobs and exist?
Oh, there are a lot of TikTokers that or Instagram followers Instagrams that I follow, that they happen to have big chests, and they've gotten banned on Instagram for not posting naked pictures at all. They just happen to post pictures where they're extremely big chested, and they got in trouble with it. They've lost their TikTok accounts. They're always talking about in their stories that they got banned, not for nudity, but because they happen to have big chests, and that goes against the TikTok standards. And that's where I'd say it's kind of fucked up. That's where modesty is going. Like, you cannot penalize a woman for being well endowed. That's inherently sexist right off the bat there.
Okay, so you bring up a good point, and I want to hear from all three of you. Everybody has their line. Everybody has their standard. There's cultural and societal standards. There's religious standards, but everybody has their own personal standard, right? So, where are your guys' personal standards at? Like, actually, Richard, you haven't had a chance to jump in for a while, so I'll start with you. But like, everyone has their level.
I don't know, because I don't know whether I'm different to everybody else in this. I feel like I'm different to other people in this, but I personally, although I'm going to add a caveat to this when I've done, I personally, in general, like to dress quite modestly, and I do tend to cover up, keep myself quite covered up a lot of the time, but as far as other people go, I don't care. It's up to them. I think there are certain limits. I think if you're in a workplace, sometimes dress codes, especially when it comes to health and safety, some dress codes are necessary. But in general, I've known, if I turned up to a job interview and they said this is the dress code and it was reasonable, I wouldn't particularly have a problem with it. I'd have a problem with it if they said, all the guys dress like this and all the women have to wear high heels and short skirts. Then I'd have a problem with it. But in general, if as Josh was saying earlier, if the dress code is equal across the board, or equitable across the board, then I've no problem with that in general. My personal thing is that I like to dress modestly. Although, if it's a hot summer's day, I'm as ready as anybody else to whap the baps out. And I don't mind, and it doesn't bother me. Yeah, I'm quite happy to take my top off and wear a pair of shorts and whatnot if it's a really hot summer's day. And I should be allowed to do that, as should everybody else. But like I say, in general, my personal standards are quite conservative. I like to wear nice suits and stuff, and but
that's comfort versus
yeah.
Versus what you would put on somebody else. Like when you say, like, I don't care.
And that's why I want to make the distinction between myself and other people, because I think it's like the porn thing. I don't really watch porn. It doesn't really do anything for me. I have no problem whatsoever with Josh. And
I mean, I find you a little bit of a freak.
Copious midnight activities.
That's fair enough. That's entirely up to them. And I think we've got to, I think there's a difference between that and, as I was talking about earlier, the kind of the Middle Eastern kind of cultures, the Islamic cultures, who would say, my daughter cannot dress a certain way. They have to dress a certain way.
Right.
And yet I'm going to go and be hypocritical about it. I'm not being hypocritical about it. I'm just talking about the way I feel comfortable, and other people have a right to feel comfortable in whatever way they wish as well.
But do you have a problem with those modesty standards, even if they're not being hypocritical? Like, do you have a problem with a culture or an individual telling a woman or children like you have to dress to this level of modesty, even if
I
that
think if
person's not being
I think if
hypocritical?
it becomes an act of oppression, then I think there's, regardless of what culture it is, not picking on any but culture, whether it's our own or another. If you're saying to somebody, you have to dress a certain way because this is the standard I dictate upon you, and then I think there's a problem with it. If I wouldn't turn around to my son and say, you have to wear the same kind of clothing as I do. You have to wear a suit. Even if
So do
you're
you think
uncomfortable doing so. I don't think you should make anybody else I mean, with your own children, there are certain standards you kind of have to uphold for their own safety because you're teaching them. My daughter has a habit of just whipping her knickers off whenever she wants, and we have to reinforce to her that no, you shouldn't do that because people will, take advantage of that. You've got to own your body and be the owner of your body, and you're in charge of your body. And you've got to be aware of how other people will react to your body if you're doing that. And I think that's different to telling them the way to dress. You know what I mean? I've no objection
yeah.
with it when my daughter's 18 or gets a little bit older and she chooses to do that. That's entirely up to her. If she wants to have a TikTok or an OnlyFans where she wants to do that, that's fine. That's entirely up to her. But at the minute, she's at the age where she needs to be taught how to that her body is her choice, and but other people are going to react to it in a certain way, if that
Yeah.
makes sense. And
So I
go on.
it does make sense. But I was gonna say I do want to hear from Josh and Puck, but I just have one more question for you because I like interrogating you. This is kind of fun.
It's
But you
okay. Go on.
said that you're okay with whatever modesty standards as long as they're not oppressive. And I want to hear this from all three of you actually too. But like, what would you consider our modesty standards in either the UK or America as being potentially oppressive, or is it because that we're not in the niqab that
No,
we
I think
have
it depends.
liberal?
I don't think you can say it in the UK or in the US because that encompasses a hell of a lot of different people.
Well, you can pick
So
one or the
it's
other, but like,
no, I mean either or. I mean, within the UK there are different modesty standards depending on which community you're looking at. So I think it's very hard to say in the UK because we don't just represent one set of people in the UK.
well, I
There are
guess the
lots
point
of
I'm trying to
different
make,
cultures and lots. Yeah,
I,
go on.
I think I know
yeah,
what you're trying to get. I'd say U.S.
okay,
culture is oppressive because at any point that limits what any gender could use for their body, you're being oppressive. Women are told to cover up a lot more. The only time I've said that there should be any kind of control over what people wear or what kind of modesty people should have is in employment areas. But if you're going through the park, I don't see why anybody should have to wear fucking anything. And I'm not a nudist at all. I'll wear fucking jeans and a pants shirt. So I'm not like saying it because I want to be whipping my dick out in public. But I'm just saying I do think that there is some kind of oppression in telling people how they can dress in the real world, where this is a stigma that's come through societal norms that I don't think is, and I know not everything natural is good, but it seems unnatural that we're worried about cloth over our bodies when there are so many other bigger problems to worry about. I do think it's, if a woman feels comfortable or a guy feels comfortable not wearing something, I don't think they should have to wear it.
Yeah, see, by and large, I don't think there is. I don't know about the US, but I don't think there is that oppression from kind of the law level. I've seen guys walking around in the UK with nothing but a thong and a set of flip flops, and there's
Oh, I
been
want to laugh flip flops.
there's
yeah. I was
nothing
gonna say I
there's
draw the
nothing
line at flip flops. That's bad.
there's nothing being said. I mean, they've got comments and funny looks from other members of the public, but the police haven't stopped them. They've not been Yeah, it's not Iran where the culture police have jumped on the back and said you can't dress like that.
But could a woman run around topless like that too? Because you said you had a guy.
I've seen topless women walking around, very rarely, but I have seen it.
Okay,
But
well
there's a
then
difference
maybe the
between
UK's
governmental oppression and social oppression.
there is that too. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but this is what I mean about it's very difficult in kind of a country like Britain and I'm assuming the US as well, because
Yeah.
we do have different communities with different levels of things, and there are certain communities in the UK where you'd probably where I live you find people doing the school run in the pajamas. It's just
That's me.
it's what happens. It's and nobody bats an eyelid, But in other areas of Britain, if that occurred, then they'd be severely looked down upon. So I think it's too broad a question to answer in one simple way.
That's fair enough, though.
So,
I think you still got the nuances in there. But Puck, what do you think? Like, what are your thoughts?
Okay, when you were talking about dress codes at work and whatnot, I worked in mostly service industries all my life, and dress codes really for us exist for three purposes. Number one, you want to be able to clearly identify who the employees are at a location. Okay, like when I worked at a swim school,
Fair.
the dress code for everybody was bright orange shirts because bright orange is the easiest color to see under the water. So any of the parents could see where the coaches are. Any of the managers could make sure that there was a proper head count and all that. So that's one reason. Another reason is to provide enough safety and for whatever the job is. Okay, for example, if you work in a kitchen, having to have no slip shoes makes a lot of sense, right? And any other protection. Right. The third one is because we have to be able to immediately get the trust of anybody who is coming to us for any reason. Now, the company that I work for now, you see this right here, this bright blue shock of hair. 6 months ago, we weren't allowed to do this. And it took a long time into talking to them and convincing them that just because someone has an alternative color of hair does not mean that they are not able to deliver that level of service. Now,
Right.
I'm going to be able to take that all the way to, but that's just me. So if I go to a bank and the bank teller, regardless of gender, is completely stark naked, you know what? I can go to them and make a deposit just like I would make a deposit anywhere else because what they're dressed like, what their appearance is, has nothing at all to do with their ability to perform the function that I need them to do in that employment setting. So to even take that, we were talking about, yeah, it's a professional environment. I'm going to even detach from that further to say that even in that environment, I don't care. I personally don't care. Now, I like having a shirt on because I don't like the feeling of being sweaty. And this at least, mops it up and I can change a shirt very quickly and I don't feel sweaty. So for me, it's more functional than it is because it's covering me up. But so I'm gonna try to whenever my dress code, it's what is most comfortable for other people. Like I enjoy lounging around all day with no pants. And that's fine if nobody else is here. But if my wife has a friend over, it's actually a running joke. If my wife's friend is coming over, I will also go in the group text and say, yeah, okay, I'll wear pants just to make them comfortable. It's not about me being able to express myself in my own house. It's about I want people to be comfortable around me. So that's my standard anyway is based on I want other people to feel as comfortable as they are, as they ought to be.
No, I like people to be uncomfortable so they'll leave faster. So I'm not putting on those pants.
I was gonna say that creates a tiny bit of a vicious cycle, but I know we're kind of up to the end of the show, so I don't want to dwell on it too much. In general, I agree with what you're saying, but I think we do need to be careful with reinforcing standards because of people's comfort, right?
This is one of those shows we could take on forever and ever and ever.
Yes. Yeah. So why don't we take it over to the Facebook group? So if you are listening or watching, don't forget to like, subscribe, and then take this conversation over to Facebook. If you're looking for our stuff, where to find it in other places, we have Linktree. But I'm curious to know what everybody else's modesty standards are, not your description of what you think your culture's modesty standards are, but where are your personal lines? Where do you draw them? What are you okay with for yourself, like Richard said, versus what you're okay with somebody else? Those can be two different standards. So yeah, thank you guys for joining us. I hope you enjoyed the conversation. Puck, thank you for being here once again. If I could do that little heart hand thingy, I would. I can't. I have pterodactyl arms. I like that one better. I can do that. Anyway, thank you all for joining us. We will see you next time. In the meantime, keep questioning.
Interrogate your beliefs.
And stay skeptical.
Bye-bye.